Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and in this video I'd like to show you how I've been using this light, the Godox UL150 with a QR-P70 softbox in a number of my reviews and videos over the past year. Now, I'm the first to admit that I'm not the lighting or processing guy. I much prefer an out-of-camera approach. I film with standard profiles, I try to use standard light where possible, and even after 16 years on YouTube, I still haven't yet put an RGB light in the background. But equally, there's no denying the benefits of artificial light either, providing consistency for product photography, the gear benchmarks that I try and do for comparisons, and also giving me the chance to film pieces to camera at any hour of the day. So I asked around my fellow creators on YouTube which brands they recommended, and I found that Godox kept getting good mentions as a solid choice for performance without breaking the bank. I personally wanted a daylight balanced continuous light source for filming my videos, and since I'd also be presenting fairly close to it, any fan noise would have to be minimal. I opted for the UL150 as it met those requirements, runs silently, and was also within budget at around $400 or pounds. The UL150 has a 150 watt output, natural 5600K color temperature, smoothly variable brightness from its supplied controller, and also includes 433 MHz wireless to control up to 6 lights if that's your thing, as well as Bluetooth for adjustment on a smartphone. Like most lights, it has a standard Bowens mount for accessories, but as I don't have the room or the patience for a very large modifier, I went for one of Godox's smallest parabolic softboxes, the QR-P70, which you can see here, which folds up and down very quickly and costs around $100 or pounds. What was most important to me though was whether this particular pairing could deliver the results that I wanted in a very quick, simple, single lighting setup that could be put up and taken down in a matter of moments. No fills, no backlights, no reflectors, and definitely no RGB. Here's how I got on. Okay, so I'm going to start with what's become my standard setup for filming pieces to camera indoors. I'm in the quietest room in my house, which is at the top of the building. It's a loft conversion that's pretty quiet, and I'm facing floor to ceiling very large windows which are north facing, so sometimes that light can be a little bit cool, but I'm just using auto white balance to sort that out. There's no grading, I'm just in the standard profile. Now, the thing I really like about filming under natural light is it looks natural because I'm not facing the sun or a direct source of light. It's very soft, it's quite forgiving, and it doesn't need any work doing to it. I mean, it can look a little bit flat, but I'm quite pleased with the output from it. However, the trouble with daylight, natural daylight, is that it's inconsistent and it only operates in limited hours. So when I'm filming a longer piece to camera, often that white balance, the actual color balance of the picture will change considerably, and you can just about get away with it if you don't cut your footage. But if you do, if you make a mistake and you cut out even a couple of seconds, when you join that footage back together again, you'll notice that the color can actually have changed quite significantly. So that's the first problem, it's inconsistent. The second problem is, of course, it's only available during daylight hours, right? And in winter, that gives you a very limited filming window. It is just during daytime when, unfortunately, people in my neighborhood are also doing most of their construction projects, their home improvements. So sometimes the only time you can film light-wise is when it's very noisy outside. And even though this room is pretty quiet, you will still hear people drilling and sawing in the houses in the neighborhood. So it's not an ideal setup, but I wanted to show it to you first of all as a kind of benchmark for what I normally film under. So the way you solve the problem of inconsistent daylight is to eliminate it altogether and film under artificial lighting. So first of all, an absolutely horrible setup here where I've closed the curtains on that big window, and they're blackout curtains because I do use this room as a home theatre as well. And I'm filming this just under the LED lighting that is built into the ceiling, so it's firing straight down. Now this is very common lighting that you have in a reasonably modern build, and it's absolutely fine when you're spending time, when you're living in the room, but when you're filming, it's absolutely horrible because that light is just coming straight down above me. It's causing great big shadows on my face. It's not very flattering at all. Now, I have white balanced to the color temperature of these LEDs, but there's something that still looks pretty artificial about it. However, there is one improvement that I do want to mention. in this setup, which is because those curtains are closed in front of me, there is no longer any glass behind the camera that was reflecting the sound back. Now, unfortunately, when I do film those pieces to camera under daylight with the curtains open, I might find the lighting pleasant when at least the weather is being cooperative, but unfortunately the room does sound quite echoey, and that's because of that giant amount of glass that's in front of me reflecting that sound right back again into the microphone. However, with those big heavy curtains closed, the room has become much deader in terms of reflections. It's not perfect. I mean, there's still some brash sounds coming off the sides and the rear, but it is a big improvement audio wise. But we still need to improve the lighting, so let's now switch to a proper light. Okay, now I've switched to a dedicated light. This is a Godox UL150 without any modifier at all, and it's shining at me like a bright sunny day right up there, and you can see it's up there because the shadow is very, very harsh behind me. So this is without any kind of modifier or diffuser or anything on it. So this is pretty harsh light. You almost certainly wouldn't film a piece to camera like this unless you were trying to do some sort of special effect. So I'm going to move straight on and let's modify this. But I should first of all point out that because this light is so very, very bright without any modification to it, I've actually turned it down to 50% brightness, and as before, I've white balanced before I started filming. So moving on, this is still the UL150 light, but fitted with Godox's own QR-P70 modifier. This is a parabolic softbox, and it comes with two diffusers on it, and I've got the first one fitted. I'm not going to show you it without it because I prefer the light with it, but I prefer it even more with the second one that it comes with. So I'm going to show you that in just a second, but just for now, notice how that shadow behind me has really been reduced significantly compared to the version before, where I didn't have any modification on it. So this does make a really big difference. I should also add though that the QR-P70 is one of the smallest parabolic diffusers for this system. You can fit other ones, of course, but Godox do a medium-sized one and a large one. So this is the smallest one, and I chose this model because, well, my room isn't particularly large. I didn't really have room for anything very big. But if you are filming more than one person, or you've got a bigger setup, you want that soft light to really cover a very large area, then you are looking at a larger softbox. But let's just see if I can get away with this smallest model. My next setup is still the Godox UL150 light with the QR-P70 diffuser, but I now have both of the included diffuser fabrics fitted. These are very easy to fit and remove as you require. They just attach with Velcro. And I've got both of them fitted now. So this is a much more diffused light than it was before. And again, you can see that shadow is gradually disappearing, even though the light is pretty close to me. So I could reposition the light to make that shadow effect even lessen, but hopefully you should see even softer light on my face here, which should hopefully be a bit more flattering. It does, however, with each diffuser that you put on, soak up more and more of that light. So I have now actually boosted the light levels from 50 to 70%. So it's running at 70% of its maximum brightness at the moment, which is probably enough for what I want to do here, but I may boost it a little bit more on one of the subsequent tests. But I've got one other thing to show you. And now for my final modification to this single light setup. So still using the Godox UL150 light, still fitted with the QR-P70 parabolic diffuser with both diffuser sheets fitted, but now I have the optional fabric grid, which is like a crisscross pattern that again just velcros to the front, and this gives the light a kind of more focused beam but provides a different kind of modifying effect which you may or may not want. So far I'd be really interested in hearing which effect you are enjoying the most. And now all I really have to do is kind of reposition the light until I get the effect that I want. Again, ideally you're going to want more than one light for this kind of setup, but because I don't have the room in this environment to set this up permanently, I really want to just achieve the look that I'm after with one light. So I'm just going to reposition it a little bit and continue from there. Okay, what I've done now is moved the light. Previously it was to the side and quite high up and reasonably close. So I've changed all three of those things. I've moved it further away I've lowered it down and it is now directly in front of me, shining directly at me. It is a little bit above the line of the camera. It is a little bit above me, which is why you get some shadows under my chin, but that may or may not bother you. But it does mean that there's no shadow behind me. Well, there is, but you can't see it. And what I'm trying to do here is kind of replicate the light source that I had previously from my window, which was just a very bright diffuse source of light directly in front of me. It's not exactly the same, and again the color balance isn't quite right, but I think it's a big improvement, and it allows me to film a lot more easily with the curtains closed for better sound. I can film at any time of day. I'm not at the mercy of those changing light conditions or my neighbour's home improvements. So now all you need to do is again just play around with the position, the brightness, and any other reflectors or additional light sources that you want until you get the effect that you're after. And just for good measure, here's one more setup. This is using the light with the two fabric diffusers, but this time with the optional fabric grid removed. Now what that does is focus the light. If you have the grid fitted, it focuses the light into more of a beam to avoid any spill, so you don't have light to the sides. It's just really concentrated on your subject. However, it occurred to me that when I have my curtains open, I've got all that natural light coming into my room. Well, it's spilling all over the place, isn't it? There's reflections coming from everywhere, so perhaps this is a more accurate replication of what I'm trying to do. Overall, the Godox UL150 has met my requirements for a quick and simple lighting setup, a single light solution that provides natural looking illumination at any time of day. It runs silently, doesn't cost a fortune, and I've got it coupled here with a softbox that I can fold away with the minimum of fuss. I know it's not the most sophisticated lighting setup on YouTube, far from it, but like all things in life, it's important to think about what works for you personally, and this solution has certainly done that for me. I hope you found this video useful. I would love to hear from you in the comments about what lighting setup you use, with bonus points for anyone who also opts for the very simple life like me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.